Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
The last few years, we've heard about all kinds of shortages, and many of them make complete sense. And if you'd sat down in, say, February of 2020 and said, hey, I'm going to describe to you this thing that's going to happen with COVID, and I want you to guess some of the problems that might arise. Some of them would have been very predictable. Some of them not so much. So from the Wall Street Journal, the latest is a shortage of title paper. Now, I remember when toilet paper was in short supply. We've talked about that before. We're talking about title paper, the paper upon which they print the certificate of title for a vehicle. There's a shortage of that paper, and it's causing problems. The story's from the Wall Street Journal. Nora Eckert wrote it. Supply chain snarls have hit one of the most boring documents in anyone's filing cabinet, the car title. Now, I'm not sure if all those documents are boring, because it's kind of cool if you own a car and you got the title to it. But when I first heard of this, I said, what? Recalls Bob Wheat, general manager at Village Ford, which is a dealership in Dearborn, Michigan. It was just a total surprise to me. Already, the auto industry has dealt with crimps in supplies of chips, batteries, and we're talking about primarily batteries for electric vehicles, and even the oval blue badges that Ford Motor Company puts on its trucks. They actually had a shortage of the emblems that actually go on the vehicle. Now some states are warning that the specialized paper upon which they print vehicle titles has gotten hard to find. Government agencies are rationing their stashes and extending wait times for upset dealers and car owners. And they are literally saying, we can't get you your title because we don't have the paper upon which to print it. Problem isn't with the states that issue the documents, it's with the companies that make the paper, which contains features such as watermarks and security threading to prevent counterfeiting. Consolidation in the industry has reduced the number of companies that make the paper. Dealers usually need titles to transfer ownership to buyers, and car owners need them to prove legal ownership when they register them, resell them, or trade them in. Insurance companies typically require them to process claims. So these days, the man from the dealership says, yes, be careful not to buy vehicles from other dealers unless they can actually produce a physical title. He doesn't want to get stuck trying to get one himself, because they might say, yeah, we got the vehicle, just don't have the title. Well, we can get that for you. Without a title, the car can end up sitting on the lot collecting dust. A man who works for an electrical cooperative and lives in Garden City, Kansas, bought a motorcycle from a friend in Oklahoma and then waited 5 months for the title to arrive. So he had to skip a motorcycle trip he's planning on taking to South Dakota with his father. I think it's crazy, he says. His father took the trip without him, and all this man got was photos. Other baffled consumers have been taking stock on a Reddit thread about the paper pinch. Finally got the title 18 weeks and 3 days after purchase, said one poster. Pure ridiculousness. Title paper may be the least flashy paper around. No one says, oh, I've got to title wrap some presents. Even title paper's initials, TP, of course, sound like toilet paper. It's one of these things that's like everybody's touched it probably at some point, but you don't realize the complexity that actually goes behind it, says the man who's the director of sales for labels and forms at one of the largest printers of title paper. Meanwhile, another man from South Dakota heard about the title paper difficulties when he was trading in his Dodge Challenger for a Ford pickup. The new truck was at a Colorado dealership, but he needed South Dakota to produce a new title after the lien with his credit union was released. The dealership resorted to a workaround. They got a power of attorney agreement that gave the dealer the ability to sign the title once it becomes available. It really wasn't something that surprised me knowing everything that's going on in the world today, said the man who was trying to sell. State officials in Michigan, South Dakota, and Oklahoma have taken steps to conserve supplies, including giving priority to buyers who require a title to sell a vehicle and asking dealers to hold off on applying for titles until after a purchase is final, just in case. We don't want to waste the title and have you unwind the deal. Meanwhile, the county treasurer in a county in South Dakota has been hearing by phone from angry and confused drivers, including some who have lost their titles since the state's Department of Revenue revealed in November that title paper would be in short supply until next year. And you don't want to lose your title because then you could have this happen to you. So that treasurer says this is so out of our hands. We cannot do anything about it without paper. It's like making a cake without eggs. In urgent cases, the state's Department of Revenue is fast-tracking title printing, turning around approved requests the next day, according to a department representative. And I know that in Michigan, we have to go to the Secretary of State's office to do our title work. And there are actually some offices that are designated as quick title locations, meaning that if you walk in with the proper paperwork, you can literally walk out with your title. And I've actually had that happen before where I had a situation and I think I moved or something, but I could not locate my title to a vehicle I had, and it's unforgivable in my mind because I know where all the titles are to my vehicles right now. And I couldn't find a title, and I needed it. And so I went into a Secretary of State's office that's designated as a quick title location, and I walked out an hour later with the replacement title in my hand, okay? But of course, that's long before there was shortages of title paper. Michigan, the Secretary of State, that's the entity that handles titles, has gotten more paper in recent months and is considering switching to different paper types to avoid future problems, according to a spokesperson. Some 24 states, including Texas and California, are using more digital vehicle titles, reducing the need for paper. Now, what could possibly go wrong with a digital vehicle title? I don't know about you, but personally, I like having the piece of paper that I can hang on to. I like that. I understand that in the future, when we all have jetpacks and flying cars, we'll probably also all have digital titles. I understand that. As of right now, I'd still like to have the hard copy. Shortages of all kinds of paper became more common during the pandemic, in part because paper makers pivoted to producing cardboard packaging as online shipping surged. Demand for other kinds of paper, such as those used in offices, declined as more customers moved to electronic documents and media, says paper industry executives. I can also tell you that a lot of things have transitioned over to paperless. My office, back in the old days, my files for my clients were filled with paper. And now I keep the vast majority of the paperwork on my computer in electronic form. Now, there do come times where I have to print stuff out once in a while, but more often than not, I find myself creating electronic documents and emailing them to people. And the amount of paper we save by doing that is stellar. Also, the amount of postage we save is crazy. So I understand that the post office is running into trouble because of their reduced business. And that, of course, makes complete sense too. So those changes in the paper industry led to a wave of paper mill closures and consolidations, leaving fewer producers of title paper. Today, there are only 2 primary companies that make title paper in the U.S., according to industry executives. Those 2 companies labored to meet state-specific demands, says a sales rep for Roland Sustana Group, which includes one of these security paper producers. It was literally 12 and 14-hour days for months where I was working to backfill all of these needs, he said. Some users began stockpiling the paper, straining mills already struggling to meet orders, says the president of Complete Source Inc., which prints vehicle titles for several states. In my 40 years, I've seen shortages and lead times, but nothing like it is now. So just add that to the list of things that you might encounter these days as you go about your daily life. And I got a good friend who's a broker, my friend Mark Lieberman from Nostalgic Motors. I'm going to give him a call and ask him about this because I'm curious whether it's hit him or not, because he sells and buys and sells cars for other people. And so when someone comes in and says, Mark, I want you to sell my car, they got to hand him a title. And then when he sells the car, he's got to take care of the title work as well. So I assume it's affecting him. But it sounds like Michigan might be one of the states that's not having the problems so much. So we'll see about that. But Nels sent this to me, thanks a lot, from the Wall Street Journal. Now driving you mad at the car dealership, a shortage of title paper. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I'm investing in vintage comic books, as if I don't have enough issues already.